I'm going to learn you how to play the baddest riff of Devil Always Made Me Think Twice by Chris Stapleton. For this song, you need to tune your guitar to drop D, which means that the thickest string, which is normally the E string, need to be tuned to the D. We start with the intro. You need to play the following notes. The 5th fret on the G string, the 6th fret on the B string, and you pick them simultaneously. We bend the notes a little bit so the tone gets dirty. And then we'll stop the notes. The moment we'll stop the notes, we'll play the following notes simultaneously. The 7th fret on the G string and the 7th fret on the B string. It sounds like this. You can press those 7 frets with 2 different fingers, or you can press both strings with your ring finger. And after that you stop it from ringing. And after that you get the 5th fret on the D string and the 5th fret on the G string. So it sounds like this. Then you pick those strings again and also with your finger on the 5th fret. And then you slide them to the 7th fret. So up to this point. Then we play the 3rd fret on the E string. Then you make a hammer on to the 5th fret. That means that you only pick the string once and then add an extra finger to the 5th fret. A little bit harder than normally so you can hear the new note. And after that you press the 5th fret on the D string with your pinky. And you let it sound short by releasing your pinky. And you may give the note an extra accent. Then you press the 3rd fret on the D string. And make it sound dirty by bending the string down. Then you make a pull off and let the open string ring. We'll start at the start of the 2nd part. In the intro, you have to play this part 3 times, but the tail of the riff is different at the 3rd time. After the pull off on the D string, you have to play another pull off on the A string. So first you play the pull off on the D string and then on the A string, which is previously known as the E string. After the pull off on the A string, we go to the 2nd part. You need to press the 3rd fret on the D string, which is previously known as the E string, the 3rd fret on the A string and the 3rd fret on the D string. And you play them in the following order. The thickest D string, then the thinnest D string and then the A string. And let the previously picked strings ring. You pick the thick D string with your finger on the 3rd fret again. And then you make a slide to the 5th fret. You can keep the rest of the strings pressed during the slide. So. Then you pick the A string, the thin D string, and again the A string. We start at the 3rd fret. And then you pick the open thick D string twice. And then you press the 3rd fret on the A string. Make it sound dirty again by bending the string down. Then make a pull off with this finger. You make a hammer on to the 3rd fret again. And then the open thin D string. The 2nd part sounds like this. Now it's time to play the whole riff. riff isn't finished yet because we have to put some bad as low D string between the notes we already played. We're going to practice this step by step. In the step below you can see which notes I play. You play the thick open D string before going to the 3rd fret on the A string. 2 more times. Then you pick the open thick D string again before going to the 3rd fret on the D string. And then you start all over again at the beginning of the riff. The second part was already finished, so now we're going to play the finished intro riff completely in full tempo. Now we're going to practice the verse, which contains parts of the intro. First portion is the same, but after the slide you have to play those notes 2 more times. But after that we'll play the thick open D string again and those notes on the 7th fret we've already played. 2 more times. From the start of the verse. The second part of the verse is exactly the same as the second part of the intro, but in the verse you have to play it 2 times. Now we're going to play the verse completely at half the tempo. The verse on full tempo. 1, 2, 3. After verse 1 we have to play the intro again, and after the intro we have to repeat the verse. One thing is different at verse 2 in comparison with verse 1. That thing is on the second part of the verse, so we start there. So the second part. The previous part is exactly the same, but after we play this part again, play the thick D string and the thin D string. First you play the thick D string and after that you play the thin D string twice. And again, we start at the 3rd fret. We start at the beginning of the second part. Then we go to the chorus of the song, which is a good old country trick. You press the following strings, the 5th fret on the thick D string, the 5th fret on the A string and the 5th fret on the D string. You pick the thick D string once, and then you play the rest of the fretted strings. Then you release your finger on a thick D string, so it's an open thick D string. And after that you pick the rest of the strings again. Press and release. And press and release. At the end, you play after the open thick D string, the thick D string again. This note is the start of the riff of the verse. So this is what we've got. We head to the riff of the verse. And then you play the second part of the second verse. And then we'll head to the solo. So the whole chorus sounds like this. We start at the end of the second verse. So first the thick D string and then the thin D string twice. Here we go. 3, 4. After the chorus, we head into the solo. There's a tiny riff before the solo part starts. 5th fret on the E string, then the 8th fret of the B string, then the 6th fret on the B string. It sounds like this. Then we'll play the 8th fret on the B string again. And the 6th fret on the B string again. When we play the 6th fret on the B string for the second time, bend the string down so the tone gets dirty. Then the 7th fret on the G string, followed by the 5th fret. You repeat those 2 frets on the D string. So we've got. Then you play the 8th fret on the A string. And again you bend the string down so the tone gets dirty. Followed by the open thick D string. So we've got. The last thick D string is the start of the intro riff again. Etc. We'll start at the end of the chorus, up to and including the intro riff in the solo. Now we're going to play this song from the start, up to and including the solo. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you learned something from this video. To stay tuned, subscribe on my channel and follow me on Instagram.